done is that really well, when you look at the internet as a whole, we tend to look around and people speak English, but when you look at the internet as a whole, only about 20 to 25% of the internet users speak English. The problem with that is 73% of sites are English-only sites. So 75% of the internet is excluding 75% of users. You know what I mean? So that creates, there's this big shift, and you're seeing a lot of sites start to build multilingual features, but Joomla has taken a lot of time, starting in 1.7 really and moving into 2.5 to really focus on actually building a lot of these features. What it comes down to is languages by themselves. Languages create barriers. If you think about it, if you don't speak my language, I can't talk to you. So a language by itself is a barrier. And our goal, our job, is to try to break down those barriers in order to kind of get our message across, broaden our audience, reach more people, be able to talk to more people. So I'm going to scrap that whole presentation there, and we're just going to walk through the process of building a Joomla multilingual site. So Dave in the back there, we had this nice presentation, and in between the last time I edited it and the time I opened it here, the background decided to go just totally black, and I couldn't figure it out. So we're ditching the presentation, and we're going to go with a demo of multilingual features, but in Joomla 3.0, which is kind of the next thing. If you're interested, actually, I did a webinar for Joomla multilingual features on Joomla 2.5. That's available on Joomla's YouTube channel, so you can go to youtube.com/Joomla if you're wanting to work on a 2.5 site and wanting to just kind of see it visually there. You can see all that there on youtube.com/Joomla. We're going to look at 3.0 today. So before we dig into it, I just want to give a high-level overview of kind of what Joomla multilingual entails. Okay, and when you look at it, there are only really three concepts to look at or to understand when you're talking about a multilingual site in Joomla. Once you get those concepts, once you understand kind of what you're looking at there, it becomes a lot simpler. It becomes a lot easier to do, and once you understand how those three ideas work together, you can be building sites with 2 languages, 5 languages, 7 languages, or as many languages as you need to present on your site. First, we're going to start out with the languages themselves. We have to have our languages present in our administration and stuff like that in order to create this multilingual experience. We can do it without those languages. We technically can do it, but we're not going to be able to provide this seamless, smooth user experience that we want. If I have a site in French and I don't have the installed languages there, they're going to be seeing little English language strings appearing, maybe in the login module or the breadcrumbs module or whatever. They're going to be seeing those when they should be seeing something in their language. They're going to be seeing create an account instead of whatever it needs to be. So in order to create this seamless user experience, we need to do that first. Then the second part that we're going to look at is creating the menu structure. How do we structure our menus? How do we create, organize our site in a way that makes it not only easy to navigate for users, but at the same time makes it easy to manage, makes it easy to keep up to date. If you're going to have 2 or 3 languages, that can get big after a while, and you need to have it organized in a manner that allows you to do that. And then the last part is translating the content, making sure that everything's translated, making sure that everything is readable or present in whatever configuration or whatever other languages that you need to deal with. So those are the 3 things we're going to look at today, and since we don't have our slides, we're just going to walk right through them right here live in Joomla 3. So the first one is languages. That's the first thing we're going to look at today. You probably saw this mentioned in some of the other sessions today, but there's been a lot of improvements to the actual language manager itself, the installation and management of the language packages that Joomla provides. And Joomla provides about 60, as Paul mentioned, 68 language packages right now. It supports all these different languages, but how do we get those into our site? In Joomla 3.0, we're going to head over to extensions and language manager, and this is kind of the central hub for us to manage all the different aspects of these. Now, you're going to see several options here, and the one thing I can use for my cool presenter clicky thing is my laser. You're going to see several options here, and this kind of allows navigation throughout the site. One of the newest things that you have, and this is started in 2.5.7, is this new install language here, where you can now install your language packages without having to go find it on the JED or something like that. If we click this install language, and I don't know if there's actually, I don't know if it's going to actually, you know what, now that I think about it, it's probably going to log me out. Let's see if it's going to log me out.
But it's not really showing me anything, you know, like.
Oh wait, no, here we go. Okay, so we can press Find Languages here, and this is going to automatically pull in a list of the languages. And right now, probably because John Reed has been doing it, we're testing in 3.1 beta with the French language pack. But you'll be seeing that list of 68 languages here that Joomla maintains, and the option to easily select a language and install it. And so that makes it a lot easier for you. Previously now you had to go find the language pack and hope there was one. Now you have this comprehensive list of languages that are going to be able to be installed, and you can click them and install them. When you click that, it installs two things. And coming back over here to our language manager, you'll see the two things it installs. It installs this administrator and installs the site. Okay, now there's two sides of things. There's the administrator application with all the different administrator language strings and stuff like that that you need to construct your administration and be able to browse around. And then there's the front end site that includes things for like the login module and all the different output of that the Joomla software generates. It's going to automatically install those, and you can see here I've already actually installed two of them here. ENGB, the United Kingdom English, is installed by default. That's Joomla's default language. And using that language installer, I've already installed the French language available over here. You'll notice it has also installed the same thing in the administrator side of things. The same languages are present there that you get there. So that's how we get that. That's a very simple step. But right there, we've already started the foundation of being able to present a really smooth, seamless user experience for all our users in multiple languages. Okay. Now we're going to move on a little bit, and still with languages, but now we need to create a language, really, in our content languages. Right now we've only installed the language pack that affects the Joomla output. Okay, but we need to create languages that allow us to create content in all these different languages, however many we like. And I've already done one here, French. It's only going to start out with English. But you click New up here in the upper left corner now. I'm so used to saying the upper right corner with the toolbar here. And again, it's a very simple form. You know, you're going to give it a title of your language, which is the name of the language, and you know, the name. Actually, let me just open up the one that I already have present there. The native title of the language. Some of these are very specific and they need to be, you know, handled specifically. The URL language code is what Joomla is going to show after the domain root, but before the actual alias, if you decide to separate those. So you might see a site that has yoursite.com/en/whatever. And that's because they've created this facility to easily switch between languages and designate what language you're looking at right now. And that's what this is right here. That's what you want to put in that URL. Image prefix is very specific. This tells Joomla what image flag to pull up if you're using the little flags that show up there. And most of those images are already present in the system. You're just telling it which one to grab. And it grabs the image prefix. If you're wondering exactly what this is, it's the first two letters of the language tag, which designate, the first two of this designate the language, second two designate the region. So this is France. But we had the example last session of ENGB and ENUS for English Great Britain or English US. There is a difference there. And so the second part designates the region so that you can separate those. And that's important also for things like SEO, so search engines know what region you're focused on or what region your site is kind of primarily directed to. So that may be important to change for you. The rest of these are kind of, you know, standard Joomla options that you can fill in if you need. But we can save that, and I'm just going to close it here. And we've got our new content language. Now when we go to create menu items, when we go to create articles or modules or whatever, now we can set that language. We can say, okay, this is an English language article, or this is a French language article. And you can only do that once you have these content languages installed, and you can just not install, create it. Because you can just create as many as you need. You can have a English Great Britain and an English US language if you want in here. So that's our languages. That part's simple. It's very simple, but that lays a really good foundation for us for going on and creating our content. Without these small steps right here, we really wouldn't be able to provide that seamless user experience that we're after. That process for being able to easily create these languages. All right, so I'm going to move on to the next section here, but actually before I move on, I want to point out something else. This is new to 2.5 actually, present in 3.0. This is language overrides, all right? And these are very nice, even if you're not doing a multilingual site, okay? What language overrides are is it allows you, without touching the code, in the administrator part of the site, to override the language output of Joomla. So let's actually just walk through this process. I'm going to click on New up here, and let's create a new override for our site. All right? New. Let me visit the front end of the site so we can get a good example. All right, so I want to come down here. I think I have a login. Wait, let's translate this create an account. Right over here we have a create an account. That's a language string. That's an output from Joomla. I didn't go in there and add that in. That's just a standard Joomla output. So what I'm going to do is come back over here, and first let me search for this. All right, and it's going to create a cache of all the core kind of language files that are in there. But I can search for either the value, which is what the user sees in the front end, or the constant, if I know the constant, that first part of the string that's stored in the language file. But what I'm going to do really quick, and you're going to see, I'm going to search for it here. So let's just start with the word create and see if it picks it up. All right. And create a date, create an account right here. You see all the language strings that have that word create in their value, in their output. And if you look right down here, we have our create an account for the registration. So what we're going to do is select that, all right? Select that one, and it kind of pre-fills some of the information in here. And we can change this. We can say, join our site, all right? And let's save and close here. So we've just created an override. That's it. That's simple. But that's something that used to take a while. You'd have to, if you were daring enough to venture into the files and try to figure it out and find it, you might be able to get it done after some tries. So let's go see if this has actually been reflected on the front end here. Wait for that to refresh. Is it actually ready to refresh? Let's see it refresh. Just make sure.
That is awesome.
Huh?
That's great. A great feature.
All right. Now let's see if it's actually reflected up here. Where'd it go? Did I get the wrong string? Register. Let me see if it's over here. Maybe I got the wrong string. I'm not seeing it there. Wait, let's one more time and check. If I did that right, and it's actually showing up on the front end, that simple process right there allows us to easily affect that output, which, at least for my job, makes life a lot easier. Because even a little thing like that makes a big difference in creating just a really nice, smooth, or a custom site. And that saves a lot of time if we can do something even as simple as that. So that's a great new feature. I think that came out like 2.5.4 or 2.5.5. But it's a really nice new feature. It's here present, obviously, in Joomla 3.0 as well. And it has nothing to do with languages. It actually does have stuff to do with languages, but not necessarily the focus we're talking about right now. But it's a really cool new feature that I really like. So I wanted to point that out.
You've got, in your filter, you've got English United, but you also had English Great Britain, so maybe you're on the wrong file.
I probably did. United Kingdom. Maybe I did. Okay. Yeah, I probably did. So that's languages. It's relatively simple to set up the languages themselves. There's just a couple steps. Install your language pack, create your content language, and you're done. We're done with languages. The next thing we need to move on to is our menu structure. And this is important. A lot of people that try to build a multilingual site, they don't necessarily pay attention to this at the beginning. They just think, I have a small site, I'm just going to just set it up, just like this. The problem with that is that inevitably, unless you're an abnormal site, your site's going to grow over time. And if we don't take the time to think through how we want our site set up or organize our site in at least some sort of meaningful way, you're going to have a lot of problems. You're going to create a lot of problems for yourself by not having some at least limited organization as we go through the site. So let me look at this really quick, and I've already actually done some of the work for you, for us in some of this. But what I'm going to do is we're going to come over here to the menu manager and take a look at a couple things, and you're going to notice some different things that you would normally see in just a sample Joomla site that got installed. The first thing you're probably noticing here is we have a couple flags that are located here. And these are important. What we've actually done is we've assigned those content languages that we created. That allows us to assign languages to menu items. So if I open this fruit shop menu here, you're going to notice that this menu item right here, as opposed to the default of being, all languages, doesn't really matter what language it is, it's kind of just the site language, we've actually assigned this to French. Okay, so it's a French-specific menu item, all right? And that's very easy to do. We can even use Joomla's batch processes to, select a whole list of them and use the batch processes to change what language they are as a whole. Or we can, if you're just creating them, you would do this in the creation form as you're creating a menu item. But we can use our batch processes to change lots of menus all at the same time. So we have them in French. Now how do we select this over here? We can just set a menu item as the home menu item, and this is important. It's not the typical star that you see that you kind of expect for the home menu item. It's the flag for that language because it's not actually the site homepage. It's the language homepage. In a couple minutes, we're going to go look at a couple things, a couple plugins that Joomla has that allows us to automatically switch languages based on the user's browser settings. So if they visit our site and their browser is set to be a French browser, then it's automatically going to take them to the home page. And this is that home page. It's not the site home page. It's only for that specific language, and that's when it's going to be accessed. So we can set the home page for different languages. And I do recommend, when we talk to a lot of people, and I do recommend that you have at least this three menu structure here, where you have kind of your site generic menu, and then you have a specific menu for each language. What that does is it allows us to really create that seamless experience. It allows us to say, even through the use of modules, when I'm on this page, when I'm on the English language pages, I show the English menu there, but when I'm on the French pages, I show a different menu there entirely. So it gives us a lot greater control over what appears on the pages for these languages, and everything from the content itself to the modules that appear on the page, or the template even that appears on the pages. And we're going to see that as we walk through here and some of these other ones. So we've set up some of our menus here. We have a specific home pages set for each language. So if somebody comes to that in their language, they're going to get the appropriate content that they need. And we have one for each of our languages. Now, another important thing with menus that is overlooked a lot is, well, actually, first I need to jump over here. Kind of ad hoc here. Let me actually cancel that process. I'm going to jump over here and look at these plugins really quick for you guys, and just kind of look at what I was talking about with some of those plugins. I probably should have done that earlier. Plugin manager. All right. If we kind of filter these plugins here, we're going to notice a couple plugins here. There's two plugins that Joomla has by default that affect languages. All right. First is a language code. Second is language filter. They're both important for your site. First one is the language code. Now this is very important for many countries, even the United States. Okay. When you install Joomla, you get an ENGB installation, English Great Britain. That is kind of bad for several reasons. First, the influence of it is dubious, but it could theoretically affect your search engine rankings because you're not really focused on the US, according to Google. You're focused on the UK. The other one is probably even more important, is accessibility. If somebody that is maybe blind or something comes and visits your site and it says ENGB, the screen reader that they're using to read your site is going to start reading in the English Great Britain accent. And they're going to read everything just like that. And we've gotten a lot of complaints about that. Somebody's saying, what are you talking about? You're a US political site. What are you doing reading it to me in an English accent? You're the only site I have that does that. Well, that's why, because we have our settings as ENGB. And a lot of countries face this where they're maybe Spanish, but they're not in Spain, and they have their own specific country code. What this lets us do is update those language strings here, those language designators, to reflect the correct region that we're in, all right? So I can update this and add ENUS for being in the United States, or any of the other languages that I have here if I need to update those for specific regions, okay? And that will modify that in the output there so that we're correctly reflecting that our users don't get mad at us, and everything's a lot easier when your users aren't mad at you. The second one is the language filter plugin. This is important. This actually affects what pages they get when they get to your site. So let me enable this first, and we'll go look at some of the options here. All right. Enable. Basic options. All right. So there's several options that you can see here. First is we can kind of do some basic language selection to try to see, okay, what language is this person wanting to view the site in? Okay. And probably the easiest one for that is their browser settings. What do they have their browser set to? That's kind of their preference for what language they want to browse the internet in. So we can say that. Automatically change languages. So if they come to a page that's just a normal page, but we can tell they're French, we will actually switch to the French equivalent of that page. All right? And yes, we can do that. Menu item associations. This is what I was going to look at in the menus and why I decided to come over here first. This lets us create, the best word I have for it is equivalencies between menu items. It lets me say, okay, this menu item right here is in English, is the equivalent of this menu item over here in French. So that when somebody comes to my site and switches languages to go to French, they're not taken to the French homepage, they're actually taken to the correct location in French. Okay, so it's important to think about, again, in creating this nice smooth experience. They don't have to find their way back to that article. Maybe they linked into it. They don't know where that article was on your site. This takes them directly to the correct menu item, the correct page that they're supposed to be on in that language. And then add alternate meta tags. You can do this for different languages if you have them designated like that, but it's a lot easier for organizations' sake to just create different menu items themselves. And it's a lot easier to affect the output and only load specific modules for specific languages and be able to control a lot of stuff like that. All right, so let's save this and go back over to the menu items. I want to look at this menu item associations. It's very easy to do, but it's one of the, within the multilingual features, it's probably one of the most overlooked features, I think, that we have. So let me open up the French menu item here. And let's open up this home page. And no, these are not actually equivalent. They're just, I just use the default menus here. But you would be building, duplicate, essentially duplicate menus. But of course, they're linking to different articles, maybe from a French article and an English article that are the same, or something else like that, a category or something else like that. But with that plugin enabled now, we have several options here. Let me find it. Remember where I hid it over here. Here we go. Menu item associations. A very simple feature. It's kind of buried down there. Some people miss it. But we're in our French menu item, and we can say, okay, this menu item is the same as or associated with. Let me go check the French. I don't know if I have any English menu items. Menus. English. Okay, so let me go back over here. And we should be able to create an association between these two, and if we don't, that's a problem. That's what I get from using a beta to display something. I couldn't help it though, I was too excited about it. Oh, wrong one. Menu item associations. Let's see, no associations. Oh, you know what? I don't know what it is. Yes. This is a bug that was patched with the last bug squad. Drop downs that are below here don't display. It doesn't show it. So it's there. There should be a longer drop down there. There's a bug that's actually been fixed 2 or 3 days ago, but it's not in this build yet. So we select, if you would have seen that, there's another drop down here that shows a list of all of the English menu items. And if I had another language here, it would show another option here. And it would show a drop down with all of the German menu items, the menu items that are designated as being for the German language. And I could select what is the equivalent of that menu item, of this French menu item, to create an association. Now when I save this, if I go to the front end and I'm on this specific page, okay, and I click maybe the language switcher, because I want to switch languages, it's not only going to take me to that language, but it's now going to take me to that language and to the correct page in that language, which again is really big for preserving this really nice smooth workflow that you want your visitors to have. Otherwise, they're just going to go, they're going to switch languages and they're going to be more confused than helped by your efforts to create nice languages and everything for them. Yes?
Do you have to make an association with each article, with each page? Do you
With
have to
each,
go manually?
yeah, so for each menu item. Now, so each menu item would be a category. And we're going to get into that next with the building content. You would have, for example, you would have an English article and a translated French article. That's the same article. And of course, they're on different menu items, and you need to create that association so that when they move over, say it's your About Us page. You have an English About Us article and a French About Us article. They're both linked to from their respective menu items. And when they switch languages, you want them to not only be taken to the French language, but you want them to be taken to the French About Us article. So you would create the association for each of those menu items. Now, I don't have to go over to the English menu and tell it it's associated. It kind of goes both ways. I just need to create it on one. If I actually go over to the English menu, menus, Australian parks. One of these menu items in here, I don't remember which one I picked, park log, I think. There you go. It already has the association tag with it because it's kind of just goes both ways. It's just kind of a dual association there. So now when somebody navigates around in my site, if they need to switch languages, that process becomes a lot easier for them. It becomes a lot smoother for them. Okay? So we have our languages. That set a nice foundation for creating our content. We have our menus, and again, I do think it's important to create different menus to preserve that structure. It also allows you to have greater control over what modules are loaded, maybe, especially with things like a slideshow module. You might want to have translated images, and so you will need a different module, and you can't really do that if you don't separate the menu items themselves. So and once you get this set up, it becomes a lot easier to maintain. You just you do both, and it becomes a process. And we're actually going to look at a technique to make that even easier. All right. The last process is the content itself, and we're going to follow a similar process to the menu items here that we have, but it's just the translating the content itself. Okay. And this goes for both categories and articles. Back to that idea of organization. If you try to throw everything in the same categories, I guarantee you, especially with articles, I guarantee you in a year or two, you're going to be going back and trying to resort everything out because it's becoming a mess. It is important, even at the category level, even if it's just your own personal site and you have one category called blog. You want to create an English blog and a French blog. Even at the category level, it's very important to create that organization. And we see the same options here. It's the same process really across the board for creating these distinctions. We have some English categories and some French categories. Now we don't necessarily create associations at this level of categories. We rely on the menu items to kind of carry that down for us by saying, if we have a category blog menu item, of course when we switch, it's going to go to the alternative category blog. So we don't need to create associations, but you still do need to name them, if for any other reason than just to keep track for yourself of where things are going and what it is. It makes it a lot easier, especially if you're looking at larger sites. We can use our filters to view only articles from specific languages and make that a lot easier for us. All right? So that's our categories. We would do the same thing with our articles. We would come over here, and some of our articles might be English articles, some of them would be French articles, obviously depending maybe on the category that they're in. But we would just add them, add each article to its appropriate language as needed. One of the things I'm going to mention at the end is the tool that we use a lot to help manage the translations that's come out recently, because this can get daunting if you have very large sites. One of the sites that we're starting to tackle this with is a site that's actually a full online encyclopedia. We built an encyclopedia for the United Nations. It's an actual physical 32-volume encyclopedia. And we put it online for the United Nations, and now they want to expand into other languages. And so we're starting to use this process, and it's going to be using this process to manage 90,000 articles across, first starting with an additional 4 languages and then moving on to other languages as they need. So you can imagine this gets daunting of just trying to keep track of all this as you get larger sites. And there's some tools out there that make your life a lot easier, at least for me. The last thing to do to really kind of complete the experience. So what we've done already is we've allowed the site, the Joomla software to be translated. Okay? We've provided navigation across languages or within a language for all of our language. And then we've translated all our content. Okay? That's the big parts right there. Now we just need to kind of tie these all together. And we're going to do that with a couple modules over here. I go over to my module manager. We're going to do this with well, right now just one module, but we're going to do this with a couple of our with our language switcher module, and this is a Joomla core module that's available in there. And what this does is on the front end, and we can see this actually, it creates this option right here. So and you can place this wherever you'd like, obviously. And there's 2 formats for it, and we can see this over here in the administrator. Basic options. All right. We can either use a drop-down that, they drop down and select their language, or we can use image flags, which back when you created that content and you set the image prefix, that's what this is for. It's going to present a flag on the front end for a specific language. Depending on what you're doing, you may prefer either. I prefer the flags just because I think they look cooler, but that's really about the only reason. They do the same function. What they do is they take you from one site or take you from one page or language to another language. And if we've set up our menu item associations correctly, whatever page they're on in our site, when they click that language switcher module over here, when they click that flag, they will not only be taken to that language, but to the appropriate page in that language. And that's really important. I know I'm stressing it, but it goes a long way in creating that seamless user experience. I see a lot of sites that they try to do this and they get about halfway, or they do about half the things. So it works, but it's just not very smooth, and it's not a very good user experience. And I'm afraid that so many users would say, oh, look, they have it in my language, that's great. And then they try to search the switch, and they get more discouraged than they do helped by actually switching. So this over here allows us to switch languages. And I can click it, and let's go over the French. All right. Now, since there were different articles there, since I wasn't really paying attention to what page I went to, you'll notice that I didn't go to any random home page. Okay? It took me to the Park blog page because I created that association. So it takes you to that specific page. And you'll notice up here, because I now enabled that plugin, I've now got my language string added on the end of there. Now this is the home page for this, but if I continue to navigate around, you can see it down here in the URL path. It's going to keep that language string in there to designate this. All right, so I can put that there, and again I can switch over to the French version. Now again, because I don't have all the associations set up for this, it's going to take me back to the home page. That's why it's important to have the association set up. But again, you'll see that the language identifier string is now present in the URL. The last thing I wanted to mention with kind of the core functions is kind of an extra step that you can do. Because of the way we've set this up, because we've used our menu items to set this up correctly, we can actually customize our template to be on a per language basis. Okay? If we come back here, all right, let me actually go over to our template manager. If you recall, your template manager now, you can assign different styles, maybe, to different menu items, right? So because we've actually created the different menu items with the template manager, because we've actually created the different menu items for the site on the front end, I can actually duplicate this style, all right? And I'm going to assign, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to duplicate the style, and I'm going to assign this style to those French menu pages that we had, if I can remember what those were. Menu items. I think this was the Australian parks, correct? Let me switch just to make sure. Maybe it's English. Yes, it is English. So, I'm just going to select all of these, so I know I got the right one. Alright, so we have our menu settings there. Right now let's go into the options and let's change something. Let's make this like a black. Alright, so let's save this. Now, what should happen here, if I've done this correctly, and again, trying to do this on the fly usually doesn't work out very well for me, as far as doing this correctly. What should happen here is on my French, let's go over to our French page, all right, and everything looks the same. What should happen when I go back is that we should see some differences in the template. Fingers crossed that it does. No, not saying anything.
I don't think your color value saved.
Maybe it didn't. It didn't.
It's not okay.
It's not. Well,
It's selected on left.
next bug report going
Yeah,
in.
you see the select bottom left
Yeah.
of your color code.
There we go. All right, now let's save this. Go back over to our French really quick, just so we can make sure we get our refresh pages here. All right, everything looks the same. Let's go back and see if it does anything different. There we go. So now I've got a different background color. Now, this is just a background color. It doesn't really mean a lot. But this makes a big difference, for example, in template logos or any other template, maybe you have background images that are present in your template. Whatever you do with your template, we can now even go as far as the template level to make sure that our user experience in all our languages is as complete as possible. So no matter what language they're in, they're viewing your entire site, including your logo or whatever. You know, if this was the Open Source Matters logo and it says "Because Open Source Matters," you could have that as a translated, you know, a translated logo there. No matter what language they're in, we're doing as much as we can to make this a really seamless user experience. For me, that's important. You know, some sites, they may not put an emphasis or a priority on even little things like that. But if you set this up right, you can go even that far so that all of your users, no matter what they're doing, no matter what language they're browsing your site in, no matter what they're viewing on your site, have a very complete, entire user experience. And that goes everything from the template to the different modules that you put on the page, whether it's menus or slideshows or the content on the page. Everything on the page, I think, if you're going to do a multilingual site, everything on the page needs to be native in that person's language. Joomla 2.5, in its core, allows you to do that very easily, very seamlessly. Now, if I can get on the internet, and I don't know if I will, I can. There's a tool that we've started using a lot. We're going to start using this for a lot of our larger sites from the folks at Anything Digital. Have you guys seen the Josetta tool yet? Have you seen that? I'm assuming you probably have. Of course they're going to give me this. And okay, I have it here. USMS guest T46 A4 C6G. Let me see if it's working real quick. Nope.
No, you have to write it
Lowercase.
lowercase, yeah.
What is it?
Lowercase.
on the top.
Oh, that is caps. I'm looking at it thinking that's already capitalized.
Yeah.
All right, D46 A4 C6G. Let's try this again. Here we go. All right. There you go. That work. Let's try this again. All right. And again, to clarify, I don't work for Anything Digital at all. I have no relationship with them at all. And the only reason I am comfortable with pointing this out is because there is no other tool like it out there. So it's not like I'm recommending somebody over somebody else. Josetta is the only tool like this out there. What Josetta is it's only a translation manager. It helps you facilitate the management of translations on your site. Okay? What this does is it creates an interface that allows you to see your articles, and you can open an article up, and when you open an article up, it's going to show the current article on the left side, let's say, and it's going to show equivalent blanks on the right side. It allows you to translate that. So it helps you by providing you an interface to easily translate everything. All right? And I'm sure if you scroll down through here, they have plenty of screenshots and demos and stuff like that. It provides important features that we think are important, like showing you how much of each article is translated. It kind of looks at the article and says, okay, you know, the Spanish translation of this article is 35% done, or the German translation of it is 90% done. All right, and it lets you update those in there as well. I have some other really nice features in here, like it works with Bing Translate, since Google shut down their Google Translate API. It works with Bing Translate to kind of auto-translate for you. And if you have ever worked with translation teams where people, that's their job is to translate stuff, they actually prefer that. They prefer something to start from and then they just go through and make corrections. You will need corrections. It's not going to be perfect, just like Google Translate was never gives you the perfect translation of something. But they prefer that, to have something to work from. And this does that for you, of helping you by giving you something to start with, you know, as far as working with the translation. Helps you actually migrate from Joomfish, because in Joomla 1.5 we didn't have any of these features. You kind of had to do either some weird multi-site thing or try to use Joomfish, which solves some of the problems but not all of the problems. or something like this, and this actually lets you migrate in from Junefish. The benefit to this, I think, the biggest benefit, besides all these nice tools, is that everything stays in the core. We're not relying on some external third-party service that houses our articles, okay? Josetta is only a facilitator. When you translate an article, it's actually putting that article back in Joomla core, content. So we don't have all these articles sitting in different places. It also does things, it does articles, it does menu items, it does modules, just about all the core content of Joomla, all the core content types, including menu items and modules and everything like that, can be translated with Josetta. They're working on, I don't know if they haven't done yet, but they've been working on getting K2 in there so that you can manage K2 translations with this. And again, this is just kind of something extra on top of core that you can use. You don't have to use this, but especially when you start dealing with larger sites, it's very helpful. It's not meant for a developer per se. It's meant for the translators, the people that don't know code. It's actually only able, this translating interface is actually only able to be accessed through the front end. And it does a great job at it. It helps you translate and helps manage those. So I mentioned that, again, I have no affiliation with anything digital. I didn't get paid to say this. Let me see, what other disclaimers can I throw in there that I might need to throw in there. But it's a really great tool. We're starting to use this on projects both big and small, and finding that it does a very nice job. So if you're looking at a site, if it's of any magnitude besides just 3 or 4 articles, this might be something to give a try, just to see if it helps your project at all.
You say it's the front end only.
So yeah, so you install in the back end, but everything is managed in the front end. So this interface right here, this is the kind of homepage interface for Josetta. Okay, yeah. This is on the front end, okay, of your site. It's going to create a menu item for you that's on the front end. All right, this is where you land. Right, and these are all the different languages. Another thing that it has is it has permissions. Okay, I can say I only want Randy Carey to be able to translate Italian. If you can only translate Italian, you're not going to see any of these other icons up here. You cannot translate into that language. All right. So it has permissions, which is again important for larger sites and stuff like that. All right. So this is where you come. This is kind of your landing page, your home page for managing translations. From here, you can select what content type you're going to translate: Joomla articles, menu items, modules, whatever you need. You can select the category of that. Of course, then you're going to be looking at this if you've set up that organization correctly, where you've separated categories and stuff like that. This makes it easier to manage this as well, since I can say, let me see the French blog category, and I'm only going to be looking at French articles for the blog. I'm not going to have mixed in here Dutch articles and Portuguese articles and stuff like that. I'm only going to have French articles, and then I can translate those to Dutch. All right. From here, again, you just hover over some of these and you can see the percentage done and when they were last modified and stuff like that. And from here, you can open it up and go into this interface. Really, it just has a list of the fields that comprise that article down the left side, and a list of blank equivalent fields on the right side. And you translate across and press save, and it goes and creates a new Joomla article in the correct category that you specified, and with the content that you specified. That's what it does. So, even with no slides, we finally got through that, which kind of annoys me. I'm really mad. I totally redid that presentation to go with 3.0, and it was really cool, and I was going to be like, yeah, and then it fell apart. Are there any questions? We've already gone through a couple of them, but I might as well ask for questions at the end.
Let's say you have some articles in English and you have some articles in French, and you want to change it maybe from French to another language.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way of resetting all of the articles at once, or do you have to go into each and every individual one?
Batch processes. So you saw me do that. Let me go through that again. And you can do this in just about every area of Joomla. Modules, articles, menu items, you can do that. If we come over here, disregard my Skype, that's probably the bug squad or the the pizza bugs and fun guys having at it today. If you come over here, I can check as many articles as I want, all right? And in 2.5, in the upper right-hand corner, you're gonna have a batch, or actually it's below. In 2.5, below the article list, you're gonna have these batch processes, and it looks similar to this, it's just set below the articles. You're gonna see these same filters there. We can change the ACL of the article if I need to. Set the language, is what we're looking for here. We can move them around. This is for, where are we here? We're in menus, so we're actually moving between menus. And there's that bug again. We're in menus, but in articles you would be moving it between categories, and you can change, you can either move it to a different category or copy it to a different category. And once you've set whatever you want to change, you just process. And it's going to perform whatever operation you've selected, or combination of operations. I can change the ACL and the language at the same time. And it's going to just do that for everything that you have selected. So hopefully that makes it a little bit easier for you. Any other questions?